Hi, my name is Talia, and today I'm going to teach you how to control bleeding. So first, what you're going to do is, if you see a victim who's clearly bleeding and there's an open wound, what you first want to do is make sure that the scene is safe for you. If there's fires or anything and somewhere where you don't feel comfortable, you don't put yourself in that situation. So once the scene is safe and you approach the victim, what you're going to do is make sure you have their permission to touch the victim. Now, there's a big open wound here and the patient is gushing out blood. What you want to do to control the bleeding is apply lots and lots of pressure. And if you have a gauze pad, use a gauze pad. If you don't, you can always use clothing items or such as socks, sweaters, stuff like that, and just apply lots and lots of pressure to stop the bleeding. Then what you're going to do is use a gauze roll to wrap it all up. Pressure is really, really important, as a person can bleed out in just 4 minutes. And the patient might feel a lot of discomfort and say, oh, it's too tight, but really what you're doing is putting pressure and saving their life. Now, if the patient is still, if the gauze isn't working and the patient is still gushing out blood, and this is a life or death emergency where there's a pool of blood around them, you can make the decision to use a tourniquet, which is a device to control bleeding and restrict blood flow to the wound. A tourniquet can be applied by anyone, but it can only be removed by a medical professional. And a tourniquet is placed 2 inches above the wound, but it cannot be on the wrist, the elbow, or the shoulder. What you're going to do is you're going to make it really, really tight. And once it's tight, you're going to put it inside and then close it up and mark. This says time. If you have a pen on hand, you can always write the time. Or if you don't, you can take a little bit of blood and put it on their forehead. That's also a place you can write the time. The tourniquet it's not going to feel good, and it's going to feel really, really tight. But that's your goal. If it's tight, that means it's working. The blood below the tourniquet is all toxic. So that means you cannot remove the tourniquet if you're not a medical professional in a hospital setting. The tourniquet can stay on for a very long time, hours even. And the longer it stays on, though, the less likely chance there is to save the arm. But it's really important that you do not remove the tourniquet if you do apply a tourniquet.